Well, for more on how markets are moving, I'm now joined by Ross Gerber of Gerber Kawasaki. Ross, hi, thanks for joining us. All eyes then are on Jerome Powell, who's due to speak shortly. Are you expecting he might say anything on bond yields, particularly on moving the Fed's own purchases to longer-term bonds?
I'm not sure if we're going to see that or not, but it's certainly appropriate. We think 1.5 on the 10-year is where the 10-year should be. So, I think the markets are working correctly here in this readjustment process. But I think Powell's going to pledge to keep rates low because that's one of the keys to keeping the economy moving forward. So, although there's a lot of optimism right now about the future, and maybe rightfully so, in a way, the markets are sort of already assuming this good future is going to happen, and that hasn't happened yet. So I think this is all, fairly normal adjustment process as we go back to a more normal economy. And it's great news, actually.
But do you think the normal adjustment is going to be not so great news for tech and growth stocks, which of course are falling?
No, not at all. In fact, I think that's a sort of narrow-minded way to look at 1.5% rate. The rates are still, below, real rates are still negative, and they're below any historical precedent. So when you think about the support it gives so many companies, it really does support economic growth. So tech stocks and such are going to benefit hugely on the reopening too, as people change their habits, and maybe certain stocks like Peloton might not do as well, but other stocks like Apple, they're actually more efficient, better run companies now post pandemic. So we see no change in market leadership other than seeing more of the economically sensitive stocks, and we've rotated a little bit towards that.
And I'd like to ask what you make of the recent SPAC craze. Do you think it's high valuations encouraging investors to take too much risk?
Well, I think that investors have been taking too much risk, and that's why we're seeing such a sharp correction in here, mostly because valuations are high. Now, with the SPAC craze, so on one hand, it's wonderful to have so many new, exciting companies going public, but on the other hand, so many of them are just garbage or not ready to be public or are really just being taken public for profit. And so investors have to be very, very careful which SPACs they buy, what price they buy them at, looking at the way the deals are structured. And most people don't put in the time to really understand that. So I think there's going to be some real winners out of this group of SPACs, and I think there'll be many, many more losers. So it's really up to investors to do their work.
Thanks so much for that insight. Ross Gerber of Gerber Kawasaki.